Afternoon, everyone. Just out for a little ride on a very, very rare non-rainy, stormy day in the northwest of England. It's late October, very late October, and just out of my R1 here, and this might actually be the last time you see me ride this bike on the road for a bit. I'll explain for why. Now, I've ridden my R1, which I bought in early 2016. I've ridden it now for 2 summers. So the best part of the riding year, I have put 4,200 miles on it. So, you know, put a fair bit of mile on it. And after riding it for 2 summers and doing all the track days I've been doing on my other R1, I think I've kind of come to a decision regarding the future of this bike. Now, I've hinted at it previously, because I'm now starting to run quite respectable track days now. I'm just about nudging my way into the fast groups, albeit I'm the slowest guy in the fast group, but fast group nonetheless. And my 2007 R1 is perfectly adequate a bike for the job, but I have a 2016 R1. And one thing that I've learned, or one of the few things I've learned with this bike over the last 2 summers of riding her, is that one, I love it. I love this bike so much. This is the best toy I've ever owned in my life, and in that I'm including 1 aircraft, so sorry, 2 aircraft, because I've had a hang glider. No, I've had 2 hang gliders. Each of these toys, which is what they were, not as good as my R1 here. She is absolutely phenomenal. I love going to the garage and just seeing her there, you know. Just the form and beauty of this bike, just even without riding it, is just fantastic. It brings me a great amount of pleasure and happiness owning this machine. However, riding it on the road is something of a chore. Just slowing down for the horsey here. And basically, most of the riding that I do on this bike is pretty much what you've just seen a couple of miles back there. It's just town traffic until I get to somewhere a bit more open where I can ride it a bit. But even roads like this, you know, this is a speed limit controlled road. There's potentially mobile speed camera enforcement on here. The road surface isn't particularly very good. There's agricultural fields either side, so there's dust and runoff from the fields. It just makes riding a bike like this on the road not much fun, to be truthful. I mean, you can make the best of it, and it is a beautiful bike just to ride, but it's just so impractical as a road bike. And sometimes I find myself getting very, very frustrated riding this on the highway. Because let's face it, you can only ever have a little taste of what this bike is capable of on the public road. You know, just the merest little bite of what it can do. and that is pretty much about all you can do on a modern litre bike on public roads. And even that, some of that back there, you know, if I was caught committing that, I'd lose my licence. You know, it's just not a nice place to be, the roads of the northwest of the UK these days. It's a very hostile environment towards your free-thinking motorcycle rider. You know, and so, you know, whatever your opinion is on spirited riding, you know, yeah, we accept that it's against the law, but most people, and I include myself in that, do it with an eye to safety because I'm experienced. That doesn't mitigate all chances and mishaps, but I'm at least only risking my own life. Of that I am certain. But for the rest of the time, you're on roads like this that have average speed cameras on them, so you have to abide by the rules. Or there's runoff, there's gravel, there's everything, there's traffic. It's just not a nice place to ride a bike such as this. But one thing I'll tell you is damn well not happening. I am not selling this bike. So what am I going to do? If I'm not going to ride it and I'm not going to sell it, what do I do? Well, my hand has kind of been forced because in a couple of days my insurance runs out on this bike and I will have to renew for a year. Now, it's quite expensive to insure this bike, even for me, aged 46 with a clean driving licence and a clean riding and driving history. Even with that, it still costs me an uncomfortable amount of money to pay to ride this every year. So what am I going to do? I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've decided, and by saying it out loud like this, I'm doing this more for me than for you, anyone who views it, and especially for my subscribers, who I am very grateful for, for following my poxy little channel. But by saying this out loud, I am sealing it in my own mind that this is what is going to happen. I am selling my 4C8 2007 R1. I'm going to sell it. I'll lose a couple of £100 in it, but I don't care. And I'm going to sell it because what I'm going to do with the money from that sale, I'm turning this into a track bike. Oh yeah, and not just like, just take the bodywork off and put some track fairings on it. No. Going to do the job properly. I want to do at least as good a job as whoever converted my 2007 R1 into a stock race bike, because it's been done at the very minimum amount of money you can do to make a proper race bike that's you can actually use in licensed racing. But what has been done to it has really, really improved the bike. So what am I going to do to this bike? Alright, I've just stepped off the bike because I think this is going to require some pointing at, because not everyone is au fait with the parts of a bike I'm going to be mentioning here. Right, so to convert this 2016 R1, she's a little bit dirty because she's been out in some standing water on the roads, but she's going to get a good wash. But anyway, yeah, first things first, everything that is blue and silver on this bike is coming off. Everything, all the original bodywork. Now the big main reason for that is, yes, I could just ride it in its normal fairings, but track fairings cost maybe around £600 with the full kit, with the full, the fenders, the tank covers, everything. Set me back about £600. To replace all this, should I have an accident, a few thousand basically. So in the likelihood that we end up going down the track a little bit on this bike, if I ever want to put this back on the road again, then all I've got to do is take off some beaten up track fairings and put the original fairings back on, and she'll look like she did before. Now included in that, I will also be changing the clip-ons and the rear sets. Now the reason behind that is it's manifold, like the fairings, to replace Yamaha original equipment on this, because if this goes on its side, yeah, it's gonna, even with the slide protection on here, it's still gonna scuff up the clip-ons and probably scuff up the rear sets. Again, expensive Yamaha original equipment. Clip-ons and rear sets are surprisingly cheap compared to replacing Yamaha's original equipment, so that's why we're changing them initially, but also because one, aftermarket rear sets are adjustable, so I can get the seating position more track focused how I would like it, and secondly, the clip-ons here, which is the handlebar which clips onto the fork tube, basically the original one on this, for me it's a little bit too short, because what I would like to do is the brake clamp here, I would like to be able to move it about another 1.5 inches inboard towards the bike, because I've worked out a lot of the braking issues that I found with this bike is where exactly on the lever you are grabbing. Basically the fulcrum, the lever point is there, and when I ride, my fingers are there, so you know, my main power isn't that very far away from the fulcrum. If I move my hand to the edge and brake, the initial braking bite quite literally doubles. And I've tried to move it in as much as I can to bring the further reaches of the bar more towards the central part of the grip, so I could get more leverage on the brakes, thereby increasing braking force without actually doing anything more to the brakes. However, it's as far into the left as it'll go. It looks like it could go another little bit there, but it's actually butted up to the housing of the master cylinder there, so it won't. But aftermarket clip-ons, you can get them a bit longer, so I can move it out a bit further, which actually make it a bit more of a comfortable position for me as well, riding wise. And that way I could move the brake further in, have my two main braking fingers nearer to the end of the actual lever, and increase the braking force. It's a bit of a no-brainer really. And the second benefit of aftermarket clip-ons is they consist of a clamp and a tube which clamps into the clamp. Now, if it ever goes over on its side, the tubes in a raised clip-on are actually designed to break off to save bending the fork and things like that, and bending the triple clamp. It's just designed to do that. So all you have to do is basically take everything off, unclip the old bit of broken tube, fit a new tube, put it all in your back running again. That's how racing teams do it. That's how they can replace and get their bikes back on track super fast. So yeah, and with all that functionality, still cheaper than replacing original Yamaha clip-on if I crash. So yeah, so those are the main things. But one of the big things that I would want to do, suspension. Now I've been looking into the price of these things. You know, if I was just to get a set of Öhlins forks, man, that is thousands. That is a lot of money. That is my entire budget gone and some, just for a set of Öhlins forks. I could do nothing else more to the bike, and it's the same with the rear shock unit as well. If you want to put an Öhlins TTX unit in there, you're looking at £1,000. But on my 2007 R1, the guy who had it before me, who prepped it for racing, he's took it to a place called 100% Suspension, which is down the Midlands somewhere, and there's other suspension houses that do this. What you do is you take your bike to them, they remove the original OEM spring, which is in the middle of the shock and on the back of the rear shock unit and the forks, and from the factory, shock absorbers generally tend to be a progressive rate spring, so that because you've got riders of various weights going to be on this thing, you know, it's got to be able to sort of suit all flavours and all shapes and sizes of rider. But what you really want, if you want to have a bike that's set up for you and you personally on the track, so that it handles as well as it can do and the rest is up to you, is you need to have suspension that is set up to your weight with all your kit on. So for me, it would have to be set up for a rider of about 115 kilograms. because of my 15 stone plus the weight of leathers, boots, helmets and all that. So I would change the spring, I'd have the spring rates changed to suit my weight, and also if I was to say use a Olin spring or a K-Tech spring or any sort of decent racing spring, I would also have the valving changed in the shocks, in the forks and in the shock absorber, to uprate the valving and put better quality oil in there and things like that. Basically upgrade the shocks and the forks without having to spend a stupid amount of money, but getting an appreciable amount of performance out of it. So yeah, and that is about a quarter of the cost of replacing full suspension units and forks. Considerably cheaper, so I'll be doing that. The remaining thing that I'll do after I've changed the bodywork and altered the suspension and the ergonomics is that I will sort out the exhaust pipe. Now there's a lot of issues regarding that. It would be so much easier if all I had to do was take out the original big box catalyst at the bottom of this bike and change it with for a titanium link pipe. It would junk about £15 off the bike and it would sound awesome. But the big problem there is the tracks in the UK, apart from Donington, all have quite strict noise regulations attached to them. Now I don't want to just ride this bike at Donington, even though I do love Donington. The nearest track to me, for example, is Oulton Park, by a long shot. It's only less than an hour away from my house. But there it's a static test of 102 decibels. This with a link pipe on, basically it's 110 decibels. That isn't passing anywhere. So I'll need to do something about that, and I've been looking into it, and there's various manufacturers make half systems for the R1, so I'll keep the original titanium OEM headers, ditch the catalyst and the tailpipe with a rather prettier Kropovich trim on it, I know, but I can get a half system for around about £800. Now I've been on track days with R1s like this, and I've seen them without a catalyst with quite a reasonably long tailpipe on them that have actually passed static tests of less than 100 decibels. So that's what I'm going to be looking at. There's a couple of manufacturers make them, and the plan in my head is, and I believe it can be done, is that I can get a link pipe and tail can with a dB killer in, which will pass a 98 decibel static test. So that's Oulton Park, no problem. That I can then take out, and it's back to 108, 110 decibels for loud tracks like Donington. And all I would need to do is get the, I'll be doing this anyway, irrespective of what pipe I've got on it, is change the ECU flash. Because the ECU flash on this bike is a Euro 4 flash. God damn, this thing's pissing me off. Come on, get out the bleeding way. This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, the engine management unit software on this bike, or also known as the flash, is set up to pass the very, very strict EU4 regulations on emissions and noise. Now to do that, it's got to be a very lean mixture. That means there's not as much fuel to air going in, so there's more, basically it's not the best fueling that you want on a bike. One, for engine longevity, and two, for performance. And in order to get it to pass Euro 4, it's got this very restrictive engine management flash on it, which affects the twitchiness of the throttle. People think that twitchy throttles are an inherent problem with fly-by-wire bikes. Not the case. It's down to the engine management settings, it really is. But if you want a nice, rich sort of track setting, you can't have it if you want to sell your bike in the UK. But you can have them put on the bike aftermarket. So the plan is to take it, once it's got a new exhaust on it, take it to a dyno, a proper race tuning dyno, and have a proper flash put on this bike. And I want it to go on the dyno because I want, you know, I've seen it done on YouTube videos where, because gone are the days now where all you do is change it and change your pipe and put a power commander on it. Well, now the engine management systems on these are so good is that they can be tuned on the fly by someone who knows what they're doing with a good racing dyno. So they can actually tune the power curve to how you want it. And the big thing I want is I want smooth throttle pickup on mid-corner. Because as you go into a corner, you know, this is not a good example, you go into a corner on a track, heavy brake, off the throttle, and then as soon as you hit the apex you're off the brakes and you're picking the throttle up. Now at high revs this thing, it can be bit jerky on and off the throttle. That can be smoothed out greatly with a new engine management tune, and especially a flash that's designed to run on the track. It'll develop all its power it's meant to be, and it'll be a much better bike to ride on track because of that. That'll be a big improvement. It'll free up more horsepower, not that it needs anymore, and that's pretty much all the bike will need. It doesn't need anything doing to the engine because this thing's producing tons of power anyway, so it doesn't need souping up in any way, shape or form. Just a different pipe and an engine management flash, and this thing is good to go. And the good thing about having the mode systems that this bike has, as I've said before on the review, and anyone who knows R1s will know this, that the A, B, C, D modes are not actually modes in themselves. They are bookmarks for certain settings that you have set to each mode. What is the important thing is the power setting. It's got power settings like 1, 2, 4, 3, no 4. I can't remember now. I only ever use power mode 2 myself because I think it has the better throttle pickup. I think 1's a bit too snatchy for my taste, but you still get full power. So what I can do is on, say, power mode 1, I can set the thing up to run without a baffle, so it's producing smooth power and torque curves without a baffle, and it's running the best it can. So then I want to take this bike to Woolton Park or any other track that's got noise restrictions on it. What I do is I have to put my baffle in. Now that alters the fueling and the characteristics of the bike. So on power mode 2, power setting 2, I will have set up, God, this road is slippy, I will have set up a separate tune, a separate flash that is designed to run with the baffles in. So either way I've got an optimal running bike. I'll have slightly more power with the baffle out, but not so much that, you know, that it'll make the job bad. Because one thing I've noticed with my 2007 is that's got a power commander on it, and it runs superbly with a straight through pipe on it, but it's as loud as shit. It's 106 decibels. It's as loud as anything. And when I put the baffles in fact, what I do is I put an original set of tail cans on it to get it through the sound check at Woolton Park, and it only just gets through then, and it runs really badly with the stock cans on it. You know, it coughs and farts and it just doesn't make power right. You can kind of, it doesn't like it. But the beauty of this bike is that I can have 2 separate maps set up, one for baffle, one without baffle, and it'll be sweet. And that way I can take it anywhere I want, and it will have the ideal tune for bike with baffle, bike without baffle. And that will be pretty much all this bike needs. Well, in fact, it's all it's going to get, because that'll cost a lot of money. Ideally, I would like a spare set of wheels to use, because track days are quite hard on wheels. You know, there's a lot of grit flying around at high speed sometimes, and the wheels on this are caster magnesium, beautiful lightweight wheels straight from the factory, and they've got a lovely blue paint on them. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to chip up that blue paint, so I might see if I can find a second set of wheels for this that I can just throw on for track days, because what I want to do is all the stuff I've taken off, I'm going to stick it in the loft, forget about it. And I know what I'm like. I am such a flibbity gibbet that maybe in 2 years time I'll be done with track days. I'll have got it all out my system, and they won't want to do it anymore. That's kind of how I roll. I really do have a limited attention span on things. So if that be the case, and if ever I want to put this back on the road again and have it as a road bike, or in the future sell it, I don't know, all I've got to do, go in the loft, get everything out, get the spanners out and put it all back to stock again, and it's, there you go, stock bike. And another part of the rationale of my thinking is that yes, I'm going to spend a couple of £1,000 setting this bike up as a track bike, but all the stuff, so long as I don't crash it, that's the big if. As long as I don't smash it to pieces, then I'll be able to put all the factory stuff back on it again, and then I've got pretty much an R1 factory to track kit to sell, and I'll probably recoup about 2/3 of the money back that I spent on the equipment to put on it. So to me it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just to do the job properly, turn this into a proper track bike, rather than just use it on track days and only go at 90% of what I'm comfortable with because I don't want to smash it to pieces. Yeah, so it kind of makes a lot of sense, because I'm kind of done with litre bikes for the road now. You know, I've had 3 on the bounce now. I've had a speed triple, I've had my Tuono, and I've had this. And I've said this before, that they're kind of just too much for the road. They're kind of pointless. So, you know what I mean? But I don't want to sell it, and I'm loving my track days. I really, really am. And with the progress that I've made over the last couple of years on my track days, I feel I can do this a bit of justice now. You know, it'd be so nice to have this traction control, this slide control actually on the track doing what it's supposed to do, i.e. knocking 5 seconds a lap off my previous best, which is basically what the aim is. Get it to that, I'll be happy as Larry. I'll do my track days, I'll love them, I'll do it until I either can't do them anymore or I smash the bike to bits, and I just hope it isn't the latter, you know, because by changing everything I'm putting a little bit of crash proofing into the bike, because I'll also put carbon fibre frame protectors and swing arm protectors on it, so if it low sides with the protection it's got on it, it's going to be minimal damage to the actual structure of the bike, you know, the expensive part of it. The danger will come if I ever roll it or cartwheel it. So say if I high side it, and anyone who watches MotoGP or superbikes will have seen this happen loads of times. You high side the bike, the rear end slips out on a corner, grips again and flips you off like a bucking bronco. And because the bike is now at a weird angle doing like 140 miles an hour, the first thing it does is digs in and then cartwheels. And as soon as it cartwheels, it lands on its nose, bends the forks, lands on its tail, bends the swing arm mountings, and that's basically it. The bike is done, it's written off. I could probably sell what was in the bucket of remains for a couple of £100, and that would be it. You know, I am down one very expensive superbike. So that is not the intention. But if I have a little, you know, front low side or something and it slides into the gravel, it won't be the end of the world, because, as I've said, clip-ons, rear sets, fairing, it's all going to be replaceable. That's what I'm ideally not falling off at all. You know, I'm in no rush to fall off. Hope it never happens. Yeah. So that is kind of it. So this might be the last time you see me riding this bike on road, but it won't be the last time you'll see me riding it, that much I guarantee you. I don't know, it might be over the winter I might think differently of it and I'll change my mind, reinsure it again in spring and do another season on it and just keep riding my old track bike. But I also quite like the idea of having something a bit smaller for the road. And if you know, a bit of a nod and a wink, you might have a few ideas of what I'm thinking there, as long as my bank account can take the absolute abuse that I'm going to be giving it. But anyway, yeah, so plans are afoot, everyone, and in case you don't see it again this year, this will be goodbye from the R1. but I shall continue doing a couple of videos on my Triumph Tiger. I'm keeping that one insured, and until the winter sets in, I'll still be riding that one on the road, so yeah, there's still that to look forward to. So anyway, but thank you for your continued support. I notice that my subscriber count still keeps going up, and I don't know why it does, but it does, and I thank every single one of you who has subscribed. And again, I'm only a pokey little channel, none of my crap is monetized, I just do this for fun, and I hope you enjoy it. And until the next time, everyone, please ride safe, and I'll see you later. Adios. Whoa, this is slippy as shit.